What they believe is that Jesus returned invisibly in 1914, and that's when he set up the true religion, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses. And at that point, he selected 144,000 that were going to be with him in heaven. Sold on the stock market. Hey, I've sold religion, do you know what I mean? And done it for many years, you know. So and you know, and done it from the age of, since I can remember. Those are the things that are difficult to listen to. Listening to the graphic way that God is going to destroy the earth when you're 3. Those are the things that affect you when you're that little. It's very different from your traditional Christian church. They believe that only 144,000 people are destined for heaven. If you question what the organisation does, out. Shunned. You know, this is the thing. You are not allowed a voice. They believe in this thing called Armageddon. So they don't believe in people going to hell or going to heaven, apart from if you're one of the 144,000. What they say is that you will get eternally destroyed. And if you are not on the right side of God on the day of judgment, then you are going to die. I want to say it. I can't put it any more blunt than that. Jehovah's Witnesses cannot wait for the day when everyone else dies. You know, that's the crux of the matter. There are other people outside of this religion that really care. First time I'd really seen it in a woman as well, you know, because obviously I'd not seen it in my mother for my whole life, and there she was. Yeah.
Because the world must.
Should I get you some tissue?
And with this whole podcast, Sean, if 1,000 people get upset by it, but one person can take something from it and can sort themselves out as a result, I will do this every day for the rest of my life.
All right, so we've had a fantastic reception to the interviews we did with ex-Jehovah's Witness, aka apostates, and many people have reached out to us from the ex-Jehovah's community and said that they have identified with the stories. It has inspired them. There's a plethora of Facebook groups, and people have requested for us to get more on. So Jason is here. It's Easter. A huge thank you for coming on, Jason.
Definitely.
Before we get to his story, he was just telling us about the bread and the wine in the Jehovah's Church at Easter time. So could you recap that, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you. It is a real privilege. And
thank you.
This is, I know we're going to go into some dark places today. Probably not as dark as Chris, who was on your podcast previously. But it's tough for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses because they don't have a voice, and I think you guys giving us a voice on the large platform that you have is a real privilege. So thank you, I really do appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, yes, the memorial is just passed for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's very different from your traditional Christian church. As it is as a whole religion, but their memorial that they do is somewhat different. So most people will have gone to a church before and had bread and wine that gets passed around and everyone partakes of it. And churches will do it every week or every other week. Jehovah's Witnesses will practice this ritual once a year, but nobody actually partakes of the bread and wine. So they make the unleavened bread, you know, old lady usually makes it hard at work, you know, making this unleavened bread. And then they bring out the wine, and it's usually really, really lovely red wine as well.
So it's not those little white round circles?
Oh, no, nothing like that.
Communion.
Nothing like communion, no. And they put it on a tray at the front of the Kingdom Hall, and then everyone just passes it around, and it goes from person to person to person to person. And nobody partakes of it. And the reason being is, from a doctrinal point of view, they believe that only 144,000 people are destined for heaven. Now, those people will partake of it, but all of those should have now died by now because they were selected pre-1914. So, yeah, they're kind of running out of time now. But what they've done is they've just changed their doctrine slightly to kind of fit what they believe in. But yeah, so it's a very strange place to be if you're not familiar with how they work.
So the 144,000 people then, is that pre-selection, or can people still qualify for that?
No, you don't qualify for it. It's not like, you don't have
How
to go
do you
sort of to
qualify for
university
it?
or anything. What they say is that if you know, you know. That's basically what they say. But the what they believe is that Jesus returned invisibly in 1914, and that's when he set up the true religion, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses. And at that point, he selected 144,000 that were going to be with him in heaven. So really, the 144,000 should have been born prior to 1914. Well, that would make all of them now dead, unfortunately. So their prophecy is that there would still be people on the earth that were of the 144,000 that would still be alive at Armageddon. So all they've done is change their doctrine and said it was actually it's this thing called the overlapping generation, they call it. So it wasn't something that was spiritual as opposed to physical, shall we say. So yeah, but they're good at doing that. They're good at changing their doctrine to make it fit, shall we say.
This is fascinating.
Is it anyone's game?
Yeah, I suppose it is, to be fair, really. So you could turn around to it and just say, I'm one of the anointed, and they kind of have to believe you.
It's like with Scientology, you got to rise up the ranks.
Yeah.
You don't have to rise up the ranks to be one of the 144,000.
No, I suppose technically you don't, to be fair, because you can be man, woman, anything. I mean, it's one of those things that actually women can qualify for, which is a strange thing for the Jehovah's Witnesses to allow women to do. But yeah, that's one of these things that you can actually be.
So you said something there that must have shook the foundations of the Catholic Church and other Christian religions.
Yeah, of course.
Jesus came back in 1914,
Yes.
according to the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes.
So what documentation of this exists then? How did that come about?
Well, of course, there was lots of things going on in 1914 with the wars and everything else, and they said that's when he set up his true religion. Now, what's really interesting though is that back then you've got the two sort of famous well, not famous, but in the JW world they are famous. You've got Charles Taze Russell and you've got Judge Rutherford, and back then Jehovah's Witnesses were still celebrating Christmas. They were still doing birthdays. They were still practicing lots of things that they don't practice now. So it's a bit strange, really, that he selected them in 1914 when they were still doing all of these really, really awful things. But yeah, that's what they believe in. Yeah.
So was it like a resurrection kind of thing? Was it
Like
did he
Easter?
appear? Did he appear to someone like
he just came back invisibly? That's
invisibly?
Yeah, convenient.
And
yeah,
spoke
yeah.
to who?
I don't know, to be fair. Well, it was Russell that kind of had predicted these things. What Jehovah's Witnesses don't know is he actually did it using pyramidology. So he actually did it from a pyramid.
Which means what? Go on.
It's all stooped in.
I've never even heard of pyramidology.
No, he did it from a way, and there'll be other people that will be able to go into this a bit more doctrinally with them and more expert than what I am. But yeah, he was able to work out these dates from a pyramid, and that's how he worked out his timeline and said this is when Jesus sort of returned. But the dates kept on changing when obviously it didn't happen. So I think what happened in the end is he went, oh no, he did return in 1914. It's just that it was invisible. They didn't expect that. They thought it would be something that they would see, but they said no, he just returned it invisibly in 1914. 1914 is a very, very important date for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Obviously.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask the question, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, no Christmases.
Yeah. Well, it's not just no Christmas, Jen. I mean, it's
no Easter,
everything. No Easter,
no birthdays,
no birthdays, no Mother's Day, no Father's Day.
But you said pre-1914 they had all that.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
Why did they stop it?
Judge Rutherford was the one really who kind of stopped everything, including if you had facial hair. You weren't allowed. I mean, you're still not allowed facial hair when you're, being a Jehovah's Witness. But it was really his. He just wanted to separate himself from the traditions of Christianity. So that's when you obviously had, the memorial changing in terms of, people taking communion, all that kind of thing as well. So yeah, but he was the one who sort of, who really kind of put a stop to all that. But that wasn't probably until a bit later on. But yeah, obviously, that's what it was like growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, and they really don't celebrate anything, to be fair. But that wasn't the hardest bit really of growing up. I mean, you can't miss what you've never had. but there were certain other things that obviously were a lot harder than not having Christmas and birthdays.
So going back, where is it you actually grew up?
So I grew up in Lincolnshire, in a little town called Bourne. Well, that's where I grew up. Yeah, there'd be, I think there were about 30 Jehovah's Witnesses in the town where I lived.
Were you born into a Jehovah's Witnesses family?
Yeah, I was. Both my parents were also born into it as well. I think my father came into it when he was about 4, all from sort of the door knocking. And then my grandmother on my mum's side, she joined it again from door knocking. So yeah, grew up with it, you know. But the thing is that because I was sort of a third generational Jehovah's Witness, it wasn't just my immediate family that are Jehovah's Witnesses. It's the ones that go beyond that, cousins and uncles and aunts and all that kind of thing. So it was a big, you know, sort of family community, if you like. But yeah, going back to your question, so
you said there was worse things than missing Christmas.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I say, you don't miss what you've never had, and actually, you know what, childhood was actually I've got a lot of happy memories. You know, we had some really good family holidays. I always had a good relationship with my dad. We'll probably talk about my dad probably quite a lot, I imagine, over the podcast, but not so much with my mother. She was. I don't want to use the term abusive because I think that can sometimes be branded around, but she certainly was violent, and that didn't obviously sit very well with me growing up. I would say that the Christmas and birthday things never really had an effect on me, but actually it's things like being dragged to a meeting on a Sunday morning. It was things like going door knocking on a Saturday while all your mates are out playing and you're having to put on a little suit and you're selling religion. I mean, you've sold on the stock market. Hey, I've sold religion, do you know what I mean? And done it for many years, you know. So it's and you know, and done it from the age of since I can remember. Wow. Those were the bits that were hard, missing out on going out, and the worst ones really were the conventions. So just to explain what a convention is once a year you would go and meet up with other congregations within the area, and it would be a 3-day event, and you'd have to sit on a hard plastic seat for 8 hours a day. And when you're doing that, when you're 3, you know, those are the things that are hard, you know, and what you're missing out on. Those are the difficult things, but also being forced to listen to subjects which you as a 3-year-old really shouldn't be listening to. Those are the things that are difficult to listen to. Listening to the graphic way that God is going to destroy the earth when you're 3. Those are the things that affect you when you're that little. I mean, bearing in mind, again, just separate from your traditions of Christianity, they didn't have a Sunday school or anything like that. You had to listen to it, and if you got caught doing this, you know, turning around or whatever, you get slapped for it. You know, you didn't have little games, but you had to listen to the speaker. So listening to things about how God was going to destroy the earth.
How was he?
Is there an end of world component then to the religion?
Yeah. So what they believe in is that this is how they believe that they believe in this thing called Armageddon. So they don't believe in people going to hell or going to heaven, apart from if you're one of the 144,000. What they say is that you will get eternally destroyed, and if you are not on the right side of God on the day of judgment, then you are going to die. I want to say it. I can't put it any more blunt than that. If you don't become a Jehovah's Witness, you will die. But here's the other thing: even if you become a Jehovah's Witness, there is still no guarantee that God will save you at the end. It's only if you're a good Jehovah's Witness that He might save you.
Is there a date for this day of judgment?
Well, there used to be, but that's again another story. And actually, something that helped me unravel the whole truth about the witnesses was these failed prophecies of dates of Armageddon. I think they've given up trying to predict a date now because of how many times they've got it wrong in the past. But I would say out of everything, and it wasn't just these subjects about the graphic way that God was going to destroy the earth. And it's a weird thing to say. And unfortunately, it's something that actually Jehovah's Witnesses cannot wait for the day when everyone else dies. You know, that's the crux of the matter. And that probably is the case with a lot of fundamentalist religion. They cannot wait for the day when everyone else is gone and they can rule the earth. And when you're 3 and you're having to take in all that information, but also the other elaborate things that are spoken about at some of these kingdom halls, sex. You know, I mean, It's spoken about all the time in these
when kids
kingdom
are present.
halls.
In what context?
100%. It can be anything from why you shouldn't have sex before marriage. I've even, at the age of 6, I was listening to what sex positions you were allowed to do with your wife. These were the things that are said in the Kingdom Hall, you know. And people ask me this question, Sean, why do you want to stop people from joining this religion? I'll tell you why. Because when you have to listen to those things when you are 5, 6 years old, it's damaging. So of course I don't want people to join them, because this is not acceptable to have this kind of information, which, by the way, is still being done. You know, it's torturous.
What positions did they suggest?
Well, it would be things like, are we beyond 5
missionary.
minutes? I've got to be careful what I say, because I know of you.
Oh, we're past the
YouTube,
5
we're
now. We can
okay.
go. Yeah.
But yeah, for instance, oral sex, you know, and that's spoken about all the time. You know,
It's prohibited.
Prohibited, even for married couples. It's prohibited. But also things like, you know, they talk about masturbation all the time, and how, you know, you'd have a Thursday.
Prohibited?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So yeah, and this is the thing, that those are the things that you have to listen to as a child, and that's the
6
thing that's
years
damaging.
old.
Yeah, because you don't get pulled out of these things.
Did it talk about the menstrual cycle? Because in some of the religious texts, it says like a woman is unclean and you can't even sit where she's sat and things like that. I don't know if that applies to Jehovah's.
No, I certainly didn't experience that. I mean,
Okay.
I experienced certainly a lot of other things when it came to women, which we'll no doubt we'll go on to talk about. But yeah, not necessarily that one. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that was sort of my childhood from the age of, you know, from when I can remember.
So were you just absorbing all of this and you had no one to like let your feelings out to? You said your mum was...
No,
wasn't-
but you can't though, Sean. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the thing. You know, this is why so many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and current Jehovah's Witnesses get so depressed, because you have to put up and shut up. You are not allowed to have a critical mind. You have to go along with what they say. And if something changes, like the 1914 doctrine, like celebrating Christmas, they used to be allowed to smoke. But if you question it, if you question what the organisation does, out. Shunned. You know, this is the thing. You are not allowed a voice, you know, and this is what I think affects people mentally.
Wow.
What were your relationship with kids your age back then?
That's what I was going to ask.
In school
Yeah.
and in the
They're having all
community?
their Christmases, birthdays, bar mitzvahs.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're going to church every Sunday, hearing about grotesque things at such a young age. I mean, were your friends at school not questioning you?
You don't have friends at school, Jen. You don't.
You're not allowed to?
No, of course not. No, you are protected from these. You do not have school friends. You do not associate with people outside of this religion. And if there is nobody your age, tough. You know, you have. Well, I went to a C of E school. It was the only sort of school that was around in my town, and they used to do hymns. You know, so of course not allowed in that. So of course all of your people from school, or everyone in your classroom, is going into these assemblies, and I would have to sit in the library by myself. I did understand. I understood how diggers work. That was interesting. You know, I was reading those books, and it was probably more interesting than what was going on with the assembly. But it was very difficult to be able to actually interact with people that you thought tomorrow were going to die at Armageddon.
Were you allowed to interact with the other kids, or were you advised to shut
school,
up?
At school, yeah, you had to have a, you know, because you couldn't get away from them, obviously, in school, so you'd go and talk to them, but it was a very limited relationship. But again, like I said, how are you supposed to have a relationship, and how are you supposed to respect a school child that you believe was going to die at Armageddon? You can't, you know, because you believe they were on the wrong side of God, you know. So to have a relationship with them, yeah, it's almost impossible. Yeah.
Wow. And coming back after their term for Christmas, and they're talking about all their presents and what they've done and how much fun.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
It, like I say, it didn't really have any effect on me, because I had the best thing. I was God's friend, you know, so I was much better than what they were, you know. So I guess from that point of view, it didn't really bother me. But that was the thing that was drummed into me. You're better than them because, you know, you're friends with Jehovah.
So did you get bullied as a consequence of standing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, with the name that I possess anyway, Jason Thickpenny. I mean, you're going to get Thickpenny. That's my surname.
Thickpenny.
So
Yeah.
you know, you're going to get bullied for a name like that anyway. I mean, kids are brutal. I would say at primary school not so much, because I think at that age kids are a bit more forgiving. Certainly when you get into secondary school and people are trying to be the big I am, if you'll pardon the expression. It's a very different situation. So I had to learn to fight fairly young, and from the age of about 12 to 15, you are getting picked out in the playground every lunchtime, and it was brutal, and you'd get kids that would be, and they would have seen you obviously knocking on doors at the weekend, and they'd just be constantly doing stuff. I mean, it was horrendous.
What sort of things?
Could be anything from Bible basher to like, I saw you at the weekend, loved your briefcase. But then, I mean, that kind of thing was fairly light, to be fair. It's when people would actually pin you against the locker and say you hate Jehovah, because that's the type of thing, again, that kids would do, just to sort of show off to their mates, and say you hate him, otherwise I'm going to hit you or whatever, and it would be sort of stuff like that. And I would I obviously, because of how I was indoctrinated, would refuse to say it. So I ended up knowing how to finding out how to hit back, and you're not made.
Did you think you were walking on eggshells?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and every day it was like that. Every day it would be like, I'm waking up and you're not really sure what's going to happen, and am I going to come home with bruises again? And it was secondary school in particular was a very, very tough place to be.
So that went on for years, did it then?
So how did you focus
on
lessons?
On lessons. Well, you didn't. And again, the reason why you didn't is Armageddon's coming tomorrow. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about getting an education, because Armageddon's coming. So long as you're on the right side of God, it really doesn't matter. So again, that was bred into me when I was a child. So I never really sort of worried too much about paying attention in school, because I was never going to complete school. Armageddon was around the corner. I was never sort of too worried about what was going to happen. I mean, looking back now, I'm glad I didn't bother with that anyway, to be fair. But yeah, that's another story. But yeah, certainly I was never a worry about sort of.
So did you have any favourite subjects?
I loved my PE, actually, but I guess that was because I didn't have to talk to anyone. I could just run around for a little bit, I suppose. And the thing is that there were some sports which I really excelled at. So of course, when you excel at something, and people are like, give you a bit more respect for it. So I remember once I entered a tennis match, actually, and there were a couple of lads that I was playing against in the first rounds, which were notorious school bullies, and I absolutely wiped the floor with them when it came to tennis. So now they're the ones that are getting all the shit from all of the people in school, because you've been beaten by this Jehovah's Witness, So that was quite a nice thing to do. So I guess that was probably a subject that I liked. That's probably it, I would say, in terms of subjects that I liked at school.
Did imminent Armageddon prevent you from having a career goal?
What a question!
Wow.
Well, yeah, of course. Because it wasn't important,
You didn't fantasize about being something, or
no. I mean, certainly after I came out, I had those kind of goals. But certainly back then, you're a passenger in life. That's all you are. You're just passing through this world. Armageddon is what it's all about. It's you don't have to worry about any. You don't have these goals. My life was already planned out from when I was born. You'll go to school, you'll get a part-time job, probably cleaning windows. That's generally what Jehovah's Witnesses will do. You'll meet and marry someone, and then you die. And that was pretty much it,
Did your parents have jobs?
Yes, actually, yeah. My dad did. My dad was one of the very few, actually, that did. He worked for British Telecom for 50 years. He literally went from school to BT, and that was it. And then he retired, when he retired. My mum was actually a primary school. She wasn't a teacher, but she was like a helper, classroom assistant or whatever. So yeah, both of them had jobs, but like I say, my mum was part-time, and my dad was one of the very few Jehovah's Witnesses that actually had, I don't want to say a proper job. That's disrespectful. But he had a career, if you like. He never went anywhere in terms of he never climbed the career ladder, if you like. He kind of had one job, which he had for till he retired. Yeah.
How were your siblings handling the pressure growing up?
I mean, my older sister was a golden child. She did really well in school. I was a really bad Jehovah's Witness because I did like to ask questions. I did like to ask why. I did like to ask where the information was coming from. which is probably why I got a lot of backhanders from my mum for it, to be fair. But my older sister was, was very. She was also extremely talented. My older sister, brilliant artist, got straight A's at GCSE level, because that's kind of the level you were allowed to get to. So she got straight A's for that, and she was head prefect and all this kind of thing. Very, very well respected, and she was sort of golden child, really. And it was such a waste, really, because after she left school, she became a cleaner, and dedicated her life to the organisation of Jehovah's Witnesses. I certainly think that I don't know why, but she didn't seem to experience the same thing. I don't know if because she was a girl, maybe the bullying wasn't quite as bad. I'm not saying that girls don't get bullied. I know that happens a lot, but certainly for her, she was able to somehow escape it to a large extent. And I think because she was very popular, it was a little bit easier for her. In terms of my younger sister, I'm 10 years older than her, so I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest with you, because by the time she'd sort of got into secondary school and that kind of thing, I'd already left by that point, so I'm not really sure about her.
What about your brother?
I don't know her brother. I've got two sisters.
Oh, two sisters.
Two
okay.
sisters, yeah. One older and one younger. Yeah.
So we'll talk about the baptism and the process and the force of it and what it means.
Yeah, and this is the thing, you see, Jen, because when you are baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, again, it's very different from your traditional Christianity. Now, I remember a conversation I had with my mother. This is after I'd left and I'd sort of cleansed myself all the way the doctrine, and she said, "Oh, but we never pushed you into it. We never pushed you into it. We never forced this." But let's just think about this for a minute, shall we? At 3 years old, I'm going to every single meeting. I'm not allowed to ask any questions. I'm not allowed friends outside of this organisation. The doctrine is so important that you as a child you view it as as serious as if you walked out in the middle of the road. Oh, don't go in the middle of the road, you'll get run over. Don't put your hand in front of the fire, you'll get burnt. Don't pick up that sharp object. Oh, by the way, don't do that because Jehovah hates it and you'll die at Armageddon. Oh, okay, that's how it is. So you can say that I'm not forced. What other choice did I have?
What age did you get baptized? Because usually,
well, I was late actually.
Yeah,
I was late. I was 14 when I got baptized, which is actually quite late for them. And it's late, but still way too early. Because I had no idea. You don't know how the world turns at 14, but you've got youngsters as young as 8 getting baptized. And the process that you have to go through when you want to be baptized, it's not like it is in biblical times where there's some water, get yourself baptized, or you can just stand up in church and say, I want to be baptized, and then off you go.
Yeah, because growing up, I was baptized at 2.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm 1.5, 2, and that was usual.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And they don't obviously have child baptisms or anything like that. That's not practiced. So if you want to become yeah, that's right, Christian. Yeah, I know what you meant. Yeah. But when you're a Jehovah's Witness, it's a very different story. If you want to get baptized, you have to have, I think I had 5 sessions with separate elders, and they have this little green book. At least it was when I was a Jehovah's Witness anyway. You have a green book and you have 132 questions that you have to answer in a way that they seem is fitting. And only after you've answered all of those correctly do they say, yes, we can recommend you to get baptized. But here's the thing. When you then go to the convention to get baptized, they then ask you 2 more questions and you have to stand up. And the 2 questions they ask you is, have you repented of all of your sins? And you say yes. And then you say, do you accept the authority of the organization? It's worded a bit different to that, but do you accept the authority of the organization? As soon as you say yes, that's it. You're bound by all their rules now, and they essentially own you. And it's at that moment that, like I say, they essentially own your soul. So if you don't get baptized, you might be able to have a slightly different relationship with your parents should you choose to leave than if you get baptized. Like I say, had the full dip, had the proper baptism.
Did you know what you were walking into when you did it?
I mean, nobody does. Nobody knows what they're getting themselves into, when it comes to the dark side of it. You just think that you're joining this lovely, fluffy religion that you believe to be the truth, that's been indoctrinated in you from such a young age, you don't know what you're truly getting yourself into. By making that public declaration of, I belong to this organization, you don't know what that really truly means. But by publicly declaring it, it means from a legal standpoint, there's a lot of things that they're then allowed to do without consequence. So,
what is the ceremony then? The baptism ceremony?
I mean, it's really dull, really, to be fair. It's you go into the baptism pool, you get baptized, everyone goes like that, and then that's it, really, to be fair.
Do you wear a white?
Sorry?
Do you wear a white like Christians?
No, really.
Or
no.
a gown?
No, nothing like that. Nothing as exciting as that.
Is it full? Do you get fully submerged?
Oh yeah, fully submerged. There's no this sort of sprinkling thing that you have in church or whatever. Yeah, no, it's a full immersion.
So it's like a swimming pool.
Yeah, that's right. So they have this. They have this swimming pool. Not every assembly would have the same pools, but the one that we had in Hellaby, which is where we would do it near Rotherham, they would actually pull out the swimming pool was actually part of the platform, so they would pull out this little thing, and then there would be this like little pool that would be under there, and it was nice. It was heated and all that kind of thing.
Lovely.
So
Did you have to wear certain garments or?
They
Trunks.
just yeah no budgie smugglers certainly wouldn't have been
Or
but
a man bikini.
yeah, that's right, but no,
Yeah.
it would be shorts and t-shirt. That would be what you would have to wear. So yeah, something a modest bathing suit is what they would their term.
And
Yeah.
would it be just you, or were there several others?
There would usually be more. There'd usually be several, to be fair, that are getting baptized at the same time. Yeah,
And is all the people, the congregation watching?
yeah, that's right. All the conversation, all the conversion, all the convention. Sorry, are all watching. Yeah.
Wow.
And how long does the whole ceremony last?
Not long, probably about 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe.
wow.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very quick. Yeah.
So after you got baptized, you went on to leading meetings at 14.
Yeah, I mean the thing
Let's
is
talk
that this is the thing you see is that I was given talks in a Kingdom Hall age 6. That's the first time I got up and read the Bible in the front of a Kingdom Hall. You know, in front of sort of 40 people. You know.
You know you got these speaking skills. You're a very good speaker.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But this is the thing, and
I
I
wouldn't
want
advise you going to Jehovah's to speaking skills, but
here's the thing, you see, and I know we'll hopefully talk about this a bit later, but just to interject, if you are an ex-Jehovah's Witness and you've had all of this free training, how to be a public speaker, how to overcome potential conversational stoppers when people don't want to respond to you on the door, this confidence, you know, even how to use microphones, all of this stuff is free training that you'll get when you're there. I'm not saying you should join it as a result, but use these skills to your advantage in your everyday life now, you know, and that's what I would really encourage. But yeah, I mean, it was, but
How do you overcome conversation stoppers when you're at the door?
please tell us.
well, for instance, you would get, I'm not interested. That would be a very typical thing that you would get. So whereas obviously most people just go, oh, okay, no worries, goodbye. Now I would sort of go, okay, so what are you not interested in? You're not interested in religion, or you're not interested in what I've got to say? Or I would say something like, do you know what it is that I'm actually want to talk to you about today? And they would
Can
go,
we reenact this with me?
Oh yeah, because
Go on,
I've got
you'd be
a
not
great
interested.
talent
Go on
to
then.
deal with my Jehovah Witnesses.
oh, go on then. This will be interesting.
So they start talking, and I say, talk to me, dinosaurs.
Go on then.
yeah.
So what do you want to know about dinosaurs then? And I'm putting my
Do you-
Jehovah's Witness hat. This is going to be tricky.
What about
but go on.
aliens?
Well, do you have?
Dinosaurs and aliens.
Well, let's tackle the dinosaur thing first,
Right,
then,
okay.
shall we? Okay, so
The Big Bang Theory.
yeah, well, dinosaurs are. There's evidence that dinosaurs obviously existed now, which we obviously can't get away from. But what's your problem with dinosaurs? I mean, do you think I don't believe in them?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we absolutely believe that they exist.
Okay, that's all right then. Aliens.
What evidence have you got that aliens exist?
Pyramids.
Okay, fine.
Stonehenge.
I have no problem with the fact that as a Jehovah's Witness, other galaxies might exist with foreign people on them.
Okay, how do I join?
That was
I'm
easy.
sold. Yeah. No, what would be the usual thing then?
The
So
usual
I-
thing would be I'm not interested.
All
That
right,
would
I'm not
be-
interested.
I'm not
Sorry,
interested.
I'm having my
Busy
tea.
day.
Bugger
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I would challenge it, and
Okay.
I would say, what is it that you're not interested in?
Religion.
Why are you not interested in religion?
Not for me, sorry.
Is it because of the amount of wars that it started?
I was just, every Sunday having to go to church and stuff. Not really into that.
Okay, but if I said to you, you can live forever in paradise on earth for eternity with all of your loved ones, is that not worth going
Sign me
to
up.
church? All of this is in a ministerial book that you get when you're a Jehovah's Witness.
Wow.
So you can, so that's like I say, you can pick up some skills from it that actually, in my career, have actually been really helpful. But there's some things that certainly aren't very helpful when it comes to leading a ministry school. And just touching on it a little bit, the disrespect this organisation has for women, and it's really, really tough, because if I'm to be really honest about it, when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, the hardest thing to come to terms with was, I'm a chauvinist. I don't respect women. And the reason why I didn't respect women is because when you are 4 years old and you're sitting in a convention or you're sitting in a meeting, no women are giving public talks. No women are allowed to deliver the microphones if somebody wants to comment. They are not allowed to give talks apart from if they are sitting down. If they are going to pray, if there are no other men present, they have to put a tea towel over their head.
What?
Absolutely true story. And these are things that I'm witnessing when I am from the age of birth. They are not supposed to have full-time jobs, only part-time. Now, I don't care who you are. When you are that age and you're getting that drummed into you, you are not going to have the respect for women. And after I was baptized, age 14, the next day I was going out and doing my door knocking, and I was the only man present. So I'm having to lead him in worship. I'm being the one that's praying. I'm being the one that's saying, right, you guys go over there and you go and knock on those doors, you knock on their doors. And this is what we're doing today.
What sort of ages were the women?
Oh, they'd be all ages,
So a 14-year-old boy, not man, boy, is directing a load
yes,
of adult women.
absolutely, yeah. And that was the norm, and because I'm a man, I'm more important. That's how it is, and it's tough, and it's a tough thing, because obviously leaving the religion and getting to know women in workplaces and all that kind of thing, and meeting all these women, and these women that are now leading me in the workplace, it's like, wow, you're amazing. This is I did not expect this. And like I say, it's but when when it's drummed into you from that young age, you have to be brutal with yourself. Yeah, this is why I'm like this is why I'm feeling like I am at the moment. Because like I say, leading a bunch of women that when you're 14 years old, it's like, why am I doing this? This isn't right. But actually, that's your role now. That's your role now. And like I say, there were people that were far more experienced than me and far better placed than me to lead these people. But I'm a man, so therefore the responsibility is on me.
How many women?
It could be as many as 20, maybe. Could be as many as 20 that would come out in a field service. Because bearing in mind that the field service is their sort of elaborate term for door knocking, essentially. But you'd have like a 20-minute meeting before you'd all go out, where you'd pray and you'd read some Bible verses and all that kind of thing. And like I say, the onus was on the man, the boy. But bearing in mind, 14 actually, yes, still a boy. But you could have children as young as 10, 11 doing the same thing, But because you're a man, the responsibility is on you to do it. Yeah.
So were there many 10, 11-year-old boys leading a load of adult women?
Oh, there will be up and down the country today. I mean, in my congregation, it wasn't as big. So, but yeah, that's exactly.
I can't imagine taking orders from a child.
No, but the thing is, Jen, is if you've grown up with it, you would accept it. You would submit, because that's what you're supposed to do as women. You're supposed to submit. and the man is the head of the household. That was a term that was drummed into you when you were young and stuck with you. The man was the head of the woman.
And women are second-class citizens.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. That is again drummed into you from a young age. And I'm sorry if the day that you decide to leave the religion, you've got a lot of cleansing to do. You've got a lot of learning to do about the role of women in our society. I really, really had to learn that. Yeah.
So during these door knocking years, then you must have had some funny, bizarre, or scary encounters.
Oh yeah, God dear. What was the scariest? I'd tell you the scariest encounter I had was I'd be about 12. Which is probably why I'm still struggle with dogs. Because and this happened frequently, but there's one time in particular where I remember, and I was with an elder from my congregation, and I'd be 11, 12 probably, maybe younger actually, and there was this dog that was growling, and he got his ears pinned back, foaming at the teeth, and it was on a chain. And I said to this elder, I said, "Are we going to knock on this door?" He said, "Oh yeah, got to knock on this door. This one, we might be able to convert them."
I doubt it.
And I'm like,
Convert the dog first.
Yeah. Anyway, this dog was going for us, and it must have been about a yard from us. But the chain, I'm like, they're going to break that because this dog was dying to get his teeth into us. And we knocked on the door, and the woman said, "Look, I'm not interested, whatever." And anyway, and this elder just said to them, they said, "Is your dog all right?" And they said, "Oh no, he'll go for you." And then she closed the door. And I'm like, okay, right. So now I've got to somehow find a route down the driveway to get past this dog on a chain that's trying to kill me. But yeah, that was an experience, that's for sure. And that's probably why I still am difficult with dogs, because I'm like, is this one going to attack me? Because dogs coming at you was something that was quite commonplace, but that one in particular, I'm like, this dog one's going to tear my face off. But there was certainly some interesting. There was certainly some funny ones as well.
Yeah.
And you get people that would just have come in from the night before and all that kind of thing. That was funny. I always used to like it if the person that I was, because you usually go out in twos. I always used to like it if you go out in a two and somebody else was leading the conversation, and I would just peek in so I could watch the football on the TV. Done that a few times. I love it when, though, you get challenged, and it's something that I would love people to do more of. Is if you say to a Jehovah's Witness, "I'm not interested," they will just think that they are, being a disciple of God. And if you're rude to them, they'll think that even more. If you question them and you say, "Well, hold on a second, why do you believe that?" Getting them to open up their mind. This is why they don't knock on my door anymore, and this is why, I'm a nuisance to them now, which is kind of ironic. But that's what they need more of. They need more people to challenge them in terms of their beliefs.
What is the most challenging question?
Do you know what, interestingly, the one time I remember getting challenged when I was door knocking was from a blind priest. And he read his Bible in Braille.
Wow.
Now, Jehovah's Witnesses may come across as being very knowledgeable when it comes to the Bible. They know nothing of the Bible. They know their interpretation of the organization and their version of the Bible. They don't know what it says. I spoke to this priest and I said, "Good morning. We're offering people a free home Bible study today." To which he said, "Which Bible college did you go to?" I'm like, "What? What are you on about, mate?" Anyway, and he said, "I'll happily have a study with you." But he said, "We do it solely using the Bible. No extra publications," because they've got loads of these extra publications, the Watchtower, the Awake, the What Does the Bible Really Teach book, and all this kind of thing. They've got loads of these publications. You'll see it when they come round and on their trolley stands and all that kind of thing. This priest said, "We are going to have a discussion solely using the Bible." And when I went back to him with this elder that I assumed would have loads of more knowledge of the Bible than what I did, he could not respond to him. So when it would be like, for instance, we'd read a passage of the Bible where it says God guarantees your salvation. It's like, but you guys don't believe that as a Jehovah's Witness, do you? And he was like, no, we don't, because that's not in it doesn't mean that, it means something else. And he's like, but this is what it says. And it was this where it was actually at this point, the cogs are going around in my head, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this book that I've apparently know loads about. And neither does this elder, who's been an elder for 50 years. He doesn't know anything. So that was certainly a memorable challenge, ironically, when it was about the Bible. I mean, people that had actually challenged us about the dinosaurs and stuff before, but I had loads of stuff that I could respond to with that. Yeah. But that was the first time that I can remember being challenged, and one of the ones that actually back then really bothered me, which I never told anybody. I did years later, because I knocked on his door and said, look, I just want to let you know.
So you would say this was your turning point?
I would say to an extent it was. Yeah, it was, because it was the first time somebody had challenged my views from a very interesting perspective, shall we say, and a very respectful one as well. Yeah.
Oh, what about your hormones kicking in at that age then? Were you allowed to date?
We've gone dark quickly, haven't we? Sorry, just have a sip.
Of course you can.
While I just take that in.
Cheers.
Oh dear, we're going to go dark now, aren't we? Because there's So I was just like any normal 15-year-old boy, trying to watch pornography on my, old computer with dial-up.
That's bad, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. But it was kind of my only access to it, because of course I couldn't have these kind of conversations with, with girls at school. Couldn't obviously have a relationship with anybody at school. Where you'd see sort of other kids your age walking around the playground holding hands with the girls and all that kind of thing. You want to do it, but of course, it's completely suppressed. But yeah. There's a reason why Jehovah's Witnesses, including myself, marry young. Sex. Because
can't do it till
you can't do it till you're married.
Yeah.
Out of control. Sorry.
I've got to ask, did you know who you were going to get set up with from a young age, or was it someone you picked?
It's a really good question, to be fair. And the honest answer is that you don't have many to choose from. Because you do actually as a male, because the males outweigh the women. I think it's 1 to 5 on average, for an age range of between sort of 2 and 3 years. And I certainly wouldn't say I had a arranged marriage, but you really don't have many. If you're, in your congregation, you're not going to have many that are going to be your age. So there was kind of probably 2 that I probably could have got. Well, wouldn't say pick from, but there was only one that was interested, to be fair. And so yeah, and that was the first one that was breathing. You get married to, that's usually the way it is. Interestingly enough, actually, just to go off a little bit, I remember my dad, before he died, he said to me in this sort of proud way, he goes, "Do you know how many marriages last in the Jehovah's Witnesses over other marriages outside of it?" He said, "We are so good at keeping couples together." To which my response was, "How many of them are happy? How many of them are happy?" I said, "Look around your congregation. How many of those couples do you think are actually happy?" Of which he was very quiet. Because the thing is that you get married to somebody that you probably shouldn't get married to. And you put up and you shut up, because Armageddon will fix everything. And, and if you aren't getting on very well, don't worry, Armageddon's coming soon, or Jehovah will sort out these problems. But yeah, your hormones from that age, the first thing you want to do is get married.
So what was it like dating back then? So you have your pick of 2 girls, one of them's interested.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing you see is that, your dating is very strict. You
chaperone.
Courting.
Well, those are the 2 famous expressions in the Jehovah's Witnesses, are chaperone and courting. When you start courting, it's with a view to be married.
Was it cinema dates or?
Yeah, cinema dates, but you'd always have a third wheel. And the first time that me and my first wife had a conversation with the door locked behind us was on our wedding night. That's how serious it is.
Who was your chaperone then?
Usually her brother, to be fair, but it would be anyone.
Was he giving you daggers?
A little bit.
Sussing you?
Yeah, I guess so. But it would be anyone that was breathing, essentially. We'll take it whoever you could get. But, even to the point where you weren't even supposed to travel in the car alone. I mean, it was that serious in terms of having a chaperone, having somebody with you at all times, Forgetting about the fact that actually God's looking at you at all times anyway, but, that was their rules.
I know Armageddon's coming.
Yeah, of course, exactly. Yeah.
As much as your hormones were kicking in, because you were a virgin, was there also a sense of intimidation or anxiety going into your nuptials?
And how long had you been courting before you got married?
A year, I think it was.
Oh, that's quite quick.
It was a year. Yeah. I mean, coming back to your point again, it was very difficult, because you're doing you want to do what's natural at that age, and when you are suppressing that, it does affect you mentally, massively. Knowing that I'm not even allowed to masturbate, because obviously that would be at least one way of being able to control it, but no, you're not allowed to.
Did
you not try to?
Pressure.
Well, you said you watched porn and stuff. Were you not masturbating at all then?
No.
What?
No. It was just sort of a little bit of a...
I'll make my head explode.
But you don't know how to, though. That's the point. Do you know what I mean? You don't know how to.
So the tension's just building and building until you get married.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
But how do I say this? We're being very open, and I think it's important.
It's an open space.
It's an open space, but these are things that I'm sure other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or even current Jehovah's Witnesses will experience. Mm-hmm. It's our wedding night. What do we do now? Do you know what I mean? And it was so awkward, and I'm sure that lots of other Jehovah's Witness couples have had this. Knowing, okay, yeah, we're not allowed to do that. Are we allowed to do that? Let's have a look in the book. Are we allowed to do that?
So you're sat there with a book on your wedding night?
Not necessarily on our wedding night, but, at other times, are we allowed this position? I don't know. Are we allowed to have this practice? It's not very sexy, is it?
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Clinical.
And I never, in the whole of our marriage, I was never able to, shall we say, finish the job in the whole of term of our first marriage. But the thing is that I don't think I'm alone with that. Because
is it erectile dysfunction?
No, that was fine. That worked just fine.
Orgasm.
Yes. That was, I could never achieve it.
Psychological, isn't it? Probably because there was a lot of
pressure,
abnormal things and pressures. And
Yeah.
Getting a book out at the end of the bed.
Yeah. It was very difficult and extremely frustrating, and it really was difficult from a mental point of view. And I've never shared this before, but there was one time when I was raging inside, as you would be. And one evening, I said I wasn't very well, I'm not going to the meeting tonight, so she left. And I went to my local place. Internet wasn't really a massive sort of thing then. And I reached for the top shelf, got out a DVD and whatever, and I tried my hardest to orgasm, and I still couldn't.
Wow.
And it was so difficult. And like I say, even when you are married, because sex has been such a taboo subject, and again, going back to what we said earlier, it's what you've been taught from such a young age. Sex is awful. Sex is a bad thing. You're only allowed to do this. You're only allowed to do that. And so I don't think I was alone in terms of, what I went through, and going that deep. I think, I'm sure I wasn't alone with that. It's probably why a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses don't end up having children. I don't know if they know how to.
Is that a statistic, is it?
They certainly it's not uncommon for couples to be married and never ever have children. That's fairly common. And you do wonder sometimes, this is just purely my opinion, there is no facts attached to this at all, it's purely my opinion. I wonder if it is because they just simply don't know how to. Because taboo is such a difficult subject, but also you are pushed with someone that you might not be compatible with sexually. You don't know them intimately. You don't know them mentally. You don't know them physically. And so you might well have been that you got married to somebody who you just aren't compatible with. And you know what? That's all it was with my marriage. We just weren't good. We just weren't compatible.
Was she a nice person?
I don't want to speak ill of her, to be honest with you, because she's not here to defend herself, but we didn't get on, put it that way. That's all I'll say. We didn't get on well. And we there is no way in hell we should have ever got together. Just wasn't good.
So the pressures then and the indoctrination can put people off sex for the rest of their lives, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. Of course it is. And I imagine that there are going to be couples out there that have got married to the Jehovah's Witnesses and will never ever have sex because the suppression gets to them that much, Wow. And that's probably why a lot of them go off the rails mentally as well, because of the suppression.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So yes, you're married. Your marriage isn't that great, so you decide to have an affair.
Bit more complicated than that. Yeah.
Let's go into it.
But yeah, me and my first wife, we had our problems and we separated. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you aren't allowed a divorce.
How did you get that one?
You are allowed a legal separation. They are different as things. It's a bit of a loophole. So you're allowed a legal separation, which is where the two of you separate, but you stay married. So here I was in this unhappy marriage, which I now had to stay in, and because we were legally separated but not divorced.
So you're living together still?
Yeah. No, we at that point we've
So you're allowed separate homes, but you're still together,
still married. Yeah, but legally separated.
Do you have to see them?
No, not at all.
Not at church or something?
Yeah, you'll see him at that for that. But I think when legal separations happen, usually one of them might move congregation just to make it a bit less awkward. But yeah, so we had a legal separation, not a divorce, because divorce is unbiblical. So the only way you are allowed divorce is, of course, if one of them is unfaithful, of which it was me. So in the end,
so was that a divorce strategy?
No, not at all. It wasn't. It was never ever something that was I'd done deliberately. Well,
wow.
Yeah, no, I did. It wasn't the intention because it was like, oh, cool, I can get divorced now. It wasn't that at all. There was. I feel so sorry for the women in the Jehovah's Witnesses for reasons that we've already spoken about, but particularly elders' wives. So lonely for them. Because their man is going off, interfering with everybody else's families, and it's such a lonely place for them.
What do you mean interfering with other people's families?
Well, because the thing is that if someone was having problems in their marriage or whatever, it wouldn't be counsellors or anything. It would be elders that would go and interfere and look after the families and whatever. And elders would be always doing these shepherding visits. And what they mean by a shepherding visit is that they would go around and just sort of, bear in mind, they're not qualified to do this. They would just go around and say, are you and your family all okay? And it was almost like a bit of a, and they'd be sort of looking through your DVD shelf and seeing, if you're towing the line as a good Jehovah's Witness and all that kind of thing. But because of how often all the elders were doing that, the elders' wives do get very lonely. One of them got very lonely to the point where she was a young elder's wife and had sort of taken a bit of a shine to me, shall we say.
How did that come about? How did you notice that?
Well, it was back in the days. This is before sort of the lights of any sort of dating apps or anything. We had this thing called MSN Chat. Do you remember MSN Chat?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, this was sort of this was kind of the first thing. And I was talking to her, I think it might have been nephew. And she said, "Oh," and he introduced us, and we just started chatting, and that was that really. And she said, "Hey, I'm coming down to." She was working in my local area, and she said, "Oh, did you fancy getting together for a drink? I'll pop over." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, fine, that's no problem at all."
Did you think it was innocent to begin with?
I did.
Really?
I did. As soon as she opened the door and starts doing things to me, I kind of got a different thing.
Right, where as the door opened?
Yeah. But here's the thing, you see, this isn't somebody that I loved. It's not even necessarily someone that I necessarily found attractive.
What? Sorry, what happened? She opened the door to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Approached you.
Yeah.
Approached me.
Maybe a kiss.
Starts putting a hand around my waist and starts taking my clothes off and stuff. But here's the thing, right?
Lucky bastard.
Well, we've already spoken about the suppression and how I felt as a man and how I felt as a, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop
course,
it
yeah.
because of all this stuff that had been going on and all of the
You're a
suppression of the sex.
red-blooded male. You're
The
fine.
tension has been rising even throughout your marriage.
And what she did is release the tension.
Yeah.
She released the tension, and to be honest with you, it could have been anybody. To be honest with you, without being disrespectful to the woman, because actually she was perfectly lovely, but that's what it was. It was the release of this tension. You know, I didn't even think about, I'm going to get this fellowship now. Or, you know, I'm going to lose my family and all that kind of thing. No, that wasn't even in my plethora. It was just, it's a relief, you know.
Yes.
And that's all it was. And yeah, I actually didn't even know that she was married to an elder at the time. You know, she told me she was separated. She told me that we were in the same position, that we were both separated. I didn't know that she was actually married to an elder, not in my congregation, in a different one.
How did you find out?
It wasn't until my judicial hearing, which is your discipline from the elders. I didn't even realise until that point.
So how long did this go on then?
Yeah, was it a one-time
Once.
thing?
Yeah, once.
It was just happened once. And you got busted right away.
Pretty much, yeah.
Who? Did someone pick up on something?
There were people outside my house. Yeah, and this isn't uncommon, you know. For if people think there are certain things that are going on.
Did you tell someone, or did she tell someone?
No. Somebody.
Snitches? Snoopers and snitches outside the house?
Peeping.
That's what goes on. You know, there were people outside.
They just
outside my
reported that
house.
she'd gone in, and that looked a bit
Yeah,
out
and
of the ordinary.
they're taking a picture. Yeah.
And they
Oh, wow.
photographed as well.
Yeah.
But there was no proof that anything had happened.
No.
It doesn't need to be, does it?
No, there doesn't.
No.
To be fair, and to be honest with you, when they challenged on me, I didn't deny it. But yeah, that's what they do, and you know, even after I was disfellowshipped, you'd still get people sitting outside your house monitoring your behaviour.
Go back.
Yeah.
How did it come about in your life that you had been caught? How were you notified?
I was notified about 2 weeks later when I got a call from a local elder to say, we are inviting you to a judicial committee, or judicial hearing, shall we say, of which I said, well, what am I charged with? And he said, we can't tell you until you're here. So yeah, that was the first notification, shall we say.
What went through your head at that moment?
Shit.
Shit.
Yeah.
Did you know it was that right away? Or
Yeah,
did you
of course.
go
Yeah.
through other possibilities?
Well, I thought that I assumed that's what it was going to be, but I didn't know how they'd know.
So did you ever monitored anyone's behaviour before?
No.
No.
I've
So
never
you
done
didn't
that.
know this, like they were
I
doing
knew.
this
I knew.
prior?
I'd heard through the grapevine that it happened, but you know, I didn't realise that it was actual.
At
thing.
that moment when you realised it was probably that,
Mm.
did you fully understand the outcome of what could happen at this judicial?
Not really, to be fair, because I think there were. No, not really, because I you don't really know. I mean, you basically have three types of discipline at a judicial hearing. One of them is a private reproof, which is where they reprimand you for what you're doing. You've admitted you are repentant, and they might ban you from like a ministry or from commenting at their meetings, or ban you from praying, that kind of thing. You have a public reproving, where you are reprimanded, and then at the Thursday meeting, an elder will go up on the platform and say, Jason has been reproved but has admitted repentance. So they'll say that publicly in front of everyone to humiliate you. Yeah, very much so. And the third one, which is the biggest, most severe punishment, is disfellowshipping, which was what obviously I got.
Well, before we get to that then,
Yeah.
let's go back again. So they've notified you now. Are you coming up with a game plan? Are you reaching out to her, asking her if she's been notified?
No, nothing like that. I didn't want to drag her into it.
I think she kind of dragged herself into it.
Yeah,
to
I
be
guess so.
fair.
Yeah, but I didn't.
And you through the front door. So yeah.
No, I didn't want to do that, and I didn't blame anybody. And to be honest with you, by that point, I was so depressed. I didn't really care, to be honest with you. You know,
So it was a catalyst in a way.
Very much so. Yeah. And the judicial hearing was horrible. You know.
Describe going
Yeah.
in. Who's facing you? What kind of a room is it?
So, do you remember the classroom that you had, the old-fashioned classrooms where you have just one desk in front of you?
Yes.
So there were 3 of them all sat in a sort of semicircle, and then one chair there. So you're walking into a Kingdom Hall.
Interview style.
Very interview style.
They're
yeah.
up on big chairs, and you've got a little.
If you can imagine Dragon's Den, imagine sort of that style, and you're sitting on a chair, and then them asking you questions. They sort of dim the lights a little bit as well, again, just to sort of. I don't know if that's maybe it's done deliberately, maybe not. I don't know. And it's usually in the evening as well. Certainly that's what mine was as well. And again, I don't know if that's done deliberately or not. But yeah, that's that. And I remember just absolutely bricking it going into it, and told my mum and dad, I don't know what's going to happen to me. They're like, oh no, it'll be fine, or whatever. So yeah, having no idea what was going to happen. Yeah.
Did your parents at that point know what the issue was?
No.
So you didn't tell them?
No.
They were none the wiser?
No.
Take us through the hearing then. What was the first things that were said?
Well, I'd never heard of anybody going to a judicial hearing before. I had no idea what was going to be said. And then out come the photos. Out come we know you've done this, Jason. Why don't you just admit it? And then the questions they were asking. Did you make her climax? How many fingers did you use? Did she perform oral and anal? I mean, you are talking graphic information. I got off lightly from what I know some people have gone into, but they go dark with
Your
regards
parents are in there and everything.
Oh no, my parents, no.
Okay.
The judicial hearing is just the 3 elders and you. There isn't anybody else in.
Singular chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the stuff that they were asking. Did she? And this is the thing, and like I say, and then all these photos have come out of like this is.
And what was the photos? Are you walking into the house?
Of her walking into my house and then walking out of my house. Yeah,
just them two.
Yeah. And then there was another one where the 2 of us were in my van, I think it was, which we'd just gone out to get a bite to eat, and someone had taken a picture of us in the van. So they've obviously been following us as well. So
secret police.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So of course there was no denying it. I could not get away from it. So I ended up telling them everything. I mean, I wish I could go back into that room now and say, what the fuck business is it of yours, mate? I wish I could go back into that room now and tell them that this is none of your business, and how dare you corner somebody like me. Bearing in mind, at that time I would be 23, I think. At that time, you're gonna have children of 16 years old that are going to face exactly the same treatment. That's disturbing. That they're going to ask those kind of questions. I know of various cases, shall we say, and there was one that was famous, and people can research this, where a woman was had a judicial hearing for having sex outside of wedlock. She was raped, right? She was raped, and the person got convicted for it. But the doctrine of the Watchtower is if you bring it on yourself. So, for instance, she'd gone out in the evening. She was wearing what they would deem a provocative skirt and that kind of thing. And they say that if you don't call out to the police while you're being raped, they would see that as you consenting. Of which she was disfellowshipped for.
What?
Oh, shit.
So like I say, I got off lightly, I think, in comparison. But she had to go through these same questions as what I have.
Did he
all
do
the
anal?
detail?
Did he oral?
Yeah, that absolutely.
Man,
yeah. But these are the questions that you get asked. Like I say, I think in comparison, I got off lightly, but it was still really hard to hit, really hard to talk about. With everything else that you were feeling emotionally and mentally as it was.
And how long did it go on for?
About an hour.
Did they give you a judgment at the end of it?
Yeah.
What did they say to you?
They said, we've decided to disfellowship you. That's
what went through your head at that point?
I think it was, how am I going to tell my parents, I suppose. That was the big thing. Yeah. I still can remember the walk back to my car. And I just remember literally just grabbing my tie and shirt and just ripping it off me.
Hulk style.
Because very much so, because I was so disgraced at what I'd done, so humiliated, felt so unworthy.
Wow.
Bearing in mind, I still believe this is the true religion and I'm being punished from God. That was what I thought. This is discipline from God. These people are godly men and they are giving me this judgment because, this is what I deserve, and that's what I thought. And I'm sure that that's what goes through other people who said, well, this is what I deserve. This is, I am not worthy, that is what goes through your head. And I remember that walk home and just feeling this anger to myself of how I felt.
How did you broach it to your parents?
I couldn't bring myself to tell my mum. I told my dad and confided in him.
What did he say?
He was actually really nice about it. He just went, okay. He said, we'll get through it. Don't worry. He said, make the appropriate steps to get back in and you'll be fine. Which I did. And, and I assume then he would have told my mother. But yeah, my dad was really good about it. My dad was very, very level-headed, and he understood some of the stuff that I'd gone through. And I always had a great relationship with my dad. And, he'd take me to various places. He was one of these sort of quite edgy Jehovah's Witnesses. So I'll give you a couple of examples. You're not allowed you're not supposed to, shall we say, go to football matches because it's deemed to be competitive. This isn't allowed. But there was no sort of doctrine in... I certainly wouldn't have been allowed to go to an international football match because that would be nationalistic and, they have to remain neutral. But he didn't see anything wrong with taking me to just a normal football match. And he got told off by elders, but he was like, oh, it's all right. I thought I could do it if I want. And I also got told off for going to Alton Towers and going on white knuckle rides because this is, again, something I was counselled for. And my dad was like, shut up, you can do this if he wants. And the thing is that my dad would sort of live close to the edge where he would never get disciplined for it, but he would push it as far as he possibly could. And I always respected him for that, because he was a bit sassy with it. And he liked the grey areas because it means we could have a bit of fun, and he'd always been very, very respectful, and the relationship with him was always very, very strong. And like I say, when I told him, it was, look, don't worry about it, we'll get through it, that kind of thing. He was actually really, really good about it. Yeah.
What about the elder's wife? What was going on with her at that same time?
I don't know. I never saw her again and never spoke to her again. So to this day, I don't know what she faced, whether or not she got disfellowshipped or got disciplined in any way. That's nothing to do with me.
I can imagine she did. So what are the steps after being disfellowshipped? Do you have to move out your house?
Hell. Yeah, it's horrible. Because the doctrine doesn't change. You are not allowed friends outside of this organisation. You are not allowed, to have a secular career. And you have to adhere to this shunning. And this is the thing that keeps people in it. And the only way I can describe it to people is imagine that you're in a house with all of your family and you go to sleep at night. And in the morning you wake up and nobody knows who you are. And that was the treatment I got. And all of these friends that I'd known for 20 years just would ignore me in the street, including my own sister, I remember seeing her once and she just walked the other side of the road when she saw I was coming. So that's the first thing. Adhere to all the shunning.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. Bear in mind, I've got no one to talk to because I'm not allowed any outside help. The thing that's going on mentally is becoming harder and harder and harder. And the other thing that you have to do is you have to go to the meetings, which is their church. So you have to go to their meetings. You have to sit at the back, and you need to come in just as the first song is being done. And you need to leave just after just as the last song is being done. No socializing, no talking to anyone, no looking at anyone. And I did that for about 6 months. They say you're supposed to do it for about a year before they'll kind of let you back in, but I did it for 6 months. Then I wrote them a letter to say, I'm ready to come back, of which they said no.
Tore it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it was mental torture for those 6 months. Bearing in mind at that point as well, I'd become, unbelievably depressed. Stopped working, stopped eating. House got repossessed. So my house got repossessed. Was living under a bridge for a number of weeks.
Wow.
yeah, it was tough. It was really tough, you know. That sort of November, December of 2008, January 2009, you know, onwards was the toughest time, and Brett weren't even allowed to talk to my parents, you know. Very lonely, very, very difficult.
So
Yeah.
when you submitted this letter then, trying to get back in, and then how did you know that was rejected?
They rung me up and told me straight away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was your parents' reaction to that?
They just said keep going, because that was the only time I spoke to them, was to say, look, it's been. I told them I was putting it in. They were obviously like, hey, you know. And then
Did they just say simply it's been rejected, or did they give you a reason?
They said it's been rejected because we haven't had a long enough time to see if you're actually repentant. That was their term. Yeah.
It's like another 6 months of shunning. Is that what they were thinking?
Yeah, that's what they were
dear.
expecting. Yeah. So it was yeah, and like I say, and then, you know, you've got nothing, and you know, you don't even have a home to go back to, you know.
Yeah, you lost your home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the streets of Lincolnshire are quite cold in December
December as well.
Well, yeah, it was December 2008 and January 2009. Yeah, it was tough, and you know, yeah. I mean, I sort of think my lucky stars that I was, you know, still able to move. I was still able to breathe. I found ways of being able to still sort of feed myself on a daily basis. I would, you know, often walk 10, 12 miles a day. You know, I'd go and find some little jobs to do and whatever within the town, earn a little bit of money, you know, that kind of thing. It was just a basic every day for survival. That's what it was.
Were you still planning on getting back in after another 6 months?
I still believed it to be truth. I mean, look, like I say, you have no other thing. You don't know anybody outside of your bubble, and that's what they do. That's what suppresses them, and that's what keeps everybody in, because you're not allowed any outside opportunity. You're not allowed any outside help.
What about the people that you bumped into walking the streets of Lincoln? Were
Yeah,
they
did you get in trouble?
Did anyone ask you what your situation was?
What, in terms of Jehovah's Witnesses, or in terms
No,
of
just anyone.
One, and it was actually I'd ended up cleaning some windows in this. It was a little town near Spalding, which is in Lincolnshire, and she asked me what was going on, and told her everything. You know, I just broke down, because this is the first time anyone had spoken to me in months. You know, and I broke down, and she said, "I've got a spare bed here. You come and stay if you want." I knew her boyfriend from school, and I happened to bump into him while I was cleaning the house, and you know, they agreed that it was okay, and I'm like, oh, I've got a bed to sleep in, you know, I've got running water, you know, and it was, you know, to this day, you know, Julie is my guardian angel. You know, she was the first time that someone cares, you know, and yeah, it was a hard time, but you realise there are still good people out there, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
They're not interested in your past. They don't care where you've come from, you know. But she was the first one that, you know, from at that point, there are other people outside of this religion that really care. First time I'd really seen it in a woman as well, you know, because obviously I'd not seen it in my mother for my whole life, and there she was, yeah.
Because the world must have...
Should I get you some tissue?
The world must have seemed so cruel at that point then.
Yeah.
Did that restore your faith in humanity a bit then, this guardian angel coming into your life?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was an opportunity to rebuild, you know. I started writing music, that kind of thing, you know, just to release some of the emotion, you know. Still believe this whole Jehovah's Witness religion was truth, but yeah, it was the first person that I'd spoken to in months, and it was like, fuck, this person really cares, you know.
Did you have a series of conversations with her as you lived there?
Yeah, very much so, yeah. And then with her neighbours and that kind of thing as well, you know, and I'd sort of started...
To see a normal way of life.
I started to sort of, I don't know, I guess sort of start seeing people that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's like, fuck, these people are actually really cool. They're really nice, you know, and they've welcomed this stranger into the neighbourhood, you know. It was the first time I sort of started to connect with other people outside of the religion, yeah.
Big up, Judy.
Were those people like asking you about your belief system?
No, because they just weren't it was just because that's what religion should be. And people sort of, some people I'm sure sort of think that I want to see this whole religion be brought down and people to stop believing it. I don't. People should be entitled to believe what they want to believe. I want to see them reformed and stop this awful behaviour that goes on every day. But they were just interested in me. They were interested in me and what I liked and what were my hobbies and, that kind of thing. It wasn't about, hey, do you believe in God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say this is how, in your words, Pandora's box opened to the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was that, there were so many things going around in my head. So many things going around in my head. My own sister shunning me in the street. This blind person that would challenge me on my beliefs. These people that are actually really nice. What is going on? What, is this really God's religion? When this is how I am feeling. Is this God's way? Is this God's punishment? Because if this is God's religion, I don't want anything to do with it, And it was at that point I started going, okay, well, if I'm going to go down this rabbit hole, and or equally, if I'm going to go back to this religion, I better make sure it's the true one. And so for the first time, I asked a question outside of the religion, and big up to all you ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, because you now own the internet when it comes to this. Because at that time, obviously, the internet was there. YouTube was, was just started coming on the up, and people were making videos. And I'm like, these guys have experienced the same thing. But then you start learning about Jehovah's Witnesses and the dark secrets that they have, the way they cover up child abuse, which is something that you've obviously spoken about on your podcast before. It's a thing. It's serious. It happens. The way that they've covered up the dealings with the UN, the way that they've their failed prophecies. I mean, we were talking about Armageddon earlier. They've predicted Armageddon is coming in 1914. Rutherford predicted it was going to happen in 1925, and then it was also predicted by Nathan Noor it would happen in 1975. The scriptures clearly state in Deuteronomy, if somebody preaches a prophecy in the name of Jehovah and that thing does not come to pass, that prophet must die. That's what it says in their Bible. And bearing in mind, I'm still a Bible believer. I mean, I haven't thrown the baby out of the bathwater. At least that's how I would have deemed it then anyway. So I'm like, well, these guys have given false prophecies before. And they're doing this, and this. And I'm like, I can't square this. And so now I know I can't return to this religion. I know too much. I can't go back in with a clean conscience. It was at that point I was just like, no more. I'm not going to rejoin.
What was the first fact-crunching piece of information you acquired, I guess? It's difficult to say because I think it was one domino falling over and then the rest of them, But I think for me, it was probably the lack of love. I think out of everything, it was the lack of compassion from elders. It was the lack of empathy for people. That's what I think for me was the thing that probably was the first thing. And then everything else fell off the back of it.
Were you able to communicate this to your parents?
I went round to see them. Bearing in mind that they knew I hadn't attended the meetings for quite some time. I called them and said, look, I think I need to pop round and tell you why. And I sat down with them and I said, I'm never going back. I said, I'm never going back. To which they were heartbroken. And my dad stood up and he said, well, you'll die at Armageddon. And that was it. Left, closed the door. And that was it. Because they knew that was it for them. I think the thing is while I was still trying to get back in, they were still kind of talking to me, but kind of not. Just kind of doing it on the QT. As soon as I said that,
They wanted nothing more to do with me.
Were you still believing in Armageddon at that point, or were you becoming skeptical?
Very skeptical. Yeah. And what I knew is that I know this isn't the right religion, but I don't know what is. I don't yet know what truth is, but I know this isn't it. And that was the thing.
How alone did you feel then leaving that conversation?
It was actually a relief, to be honest with
Was
you,
it?
more than anything. It was like, because I had to have this conversation, you know. I know some people choose to maybe not have that conversation, you know, and try to just sort of let it slide, if you like, but I'm like, no, I want to be honest, you know. I think it was more of a relief at the fact that I've told him now, you know. Yeah, I mean, certainly it was hard mentally knowing that I'm probably not going to see him again, probably not ever speak to him again. That's hard, but I am glad that I said something to them. You know, I wanted to have that conversation. Yeah.
Where were you living at this point of the story?
I was living in a little flat in Bourne, backed onto a bakery. It was great. Yeah, I'd managed to. I was living with Julie. You know, and I'd managed to get myself in a job in a call center. And of course, I was fucking brilliant in a call center. What's that? You want me to make 50?
I wouldn't want to have you on my
you
phone.
you want me to make 50 calls a day and try to sell insurance? Yeah, I'll fucking do that. Come on. You know, and people are going saying, "Oh, this is so difficult." I'm like, mate, are you serious? You think this is difficult? I'm like, and I was pretty good at it. Do you know what I mean? I was really good at it because I was so resilient. And, you know, I didn't have a problem with people telling me to fuck off. I'd had that my whole life, you know. What I did have is I had some money. I had running water. I had a bed. I had a roof over my head. And Julie, bless it, she never took a penny off me. Never, ever took any. She said, look, you need to get back on your feet. And
Hopefully she'll watch this.
hopefully,
Shout
yeah,
out, Julie.
she's a wonderful human being, and so yeah, I'd managed to get enough money to get a deposit on a flat in Bourne in Lincolnshire, £200 a month it cost me. So you can imagine kind of how tiny it was, but it was still good, you know. But it was mine. I had this little pad now, you know. So that's where I was living at the time. Yeah.
I mean, how do you begin to heal from all of that?
I mean, I certainly never did any of the stuff that, you know, Sean's done before, you know. The parties I had were like the Queen's Tea Party in comparison.
You must have slowly built up a social life, though.
Yeah, but it's the suppression is a cold spring, you know. And when you realise that this isn't true anymore, fuck, I can go and have sex. I can go, you know, I can drink, you know, I can go to Alton Towers without feeling guilty about it, you know. I mean, honestly, it is like that. So it is, you know, it's a big thing, and I went mental.
So would you say you went
Whole
a bit
new
off the
adventure.
rails?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know if I
bit
would say I'd
wild.
gone a bit wild, maybe gone a little bit mad. But I think it was more of it was more of this happiness. And don't get me wrong, underneath the surface, I'm scarred, you know, of what I've been through. But it was this release that I can now start planning my own life, and I can choose my own destination. And this is what I say to any ex-Jehovah's Witness or Jehovah's Witness, even current one that are watching it. Brave of you to watch, by the way. You can pick your destination in life. These bastards don't have to pick it for you. And I know plenty of people that leave and they never find a destination because they're so stuck.
Because they believe in Armageddon.
Because they believe Armageddon is still coming. And I have this all the time when people still believe Armageddon is coming, or they believe that Jehovah's Witnesses' message is to help people. And it's not. It's dark. So yeah, underneath I'm scarred, but actually I'm trying to make the most out of my life, you know. And I'm trying to work out what truth is. You know, I'm trying to work out, well, I've got 25 years to make up, you know. What do I want to do as a career? You know, do I want to go into education? What are my beliefs? What are my morals? What are my what are my goals in life? What do I want to achieve, you know? Those are the questions that I'm now starting to ask.
And what was your understanding of women around this time? Because obviously...
Good question. Well, I met a number at the call centre, to be fair, and the call centre was owned by a woman. You know, she'd built this business up from scratch, and now she's got, you know, 100, 200 people working for her. I'm like, fuck, this woman's amazing. You know,
Power woman.
very much so.
Yeah.
And you just sort of think, and she was probably the sort of first businesswoman that I'd met. I didn't stay in the call centre for a massive period of time. I moved into the world of recruitment, stayed in there for about 8 years. And again, recruitment is one of these things where it's very difficult to work in because it's very dog eat dog. And again, it never really bothered me because I was like, I can handle all this. But the leader of that again was a woman, you know.
So being raised in a patriarchy then, did that mess with your head a bit?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, but in a really good way, because now my mind was open. You know, my mind was open to all things, including people that wanted to have sex with the same gender. You know, and again, this is something that is obviously an ugly thing when you're a Jehovah's Witness. So you come out of this, you know, misogynist. You come out of it, you know, homophobe. That's you are. It's just as simple as that. So, you know, to actually unravel all these things, and then I'd met, you know, I'd met gay people, and I reconnected to also family members that were that were not Jehovah's Witnesses. One of them being my cousin James, who was, you know, a very proud homosexual, you know, who I had shunned for many a decade, not decade, but for many a years, because of obviously me being a Jehovah's Witness and him being, you know, a homosexual.
So what was his story?
So he was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, never got baptized, so he could still he managed to sort of sneak away when he was sort of 14, 15. And he was able to still have this relationship with his parents. But, and I'm only saying this because of the stuff that he's told me, very difficult relationship with his dad, who became a Jehovah's Witness elder, because he had to admit to him that he was gay. So it's one thing leaving the religion, but to then say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm gay, that's a different situation altogether. But I was able to reconnect with my cousin, and we were able to have some really good times prior to his death. And it was really nice to be able to have. It was nice that he'd forgiven me, you know.
For the shunning.
For the way I used to treat him. Yeah.
So under the Jehovah's Witness rules then, is it death at Armageddon if you are gay?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Well, I can't imagine it being any different, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
They might dress it up a slightly different way, but yeah, absolutely, they will say that. Yeah.
So his relationship with his parents, once he told his dad that, what happened then?
I mean, it was difficult for many years, and you know, any son wants to just make their dad proud. You know, every son's going to want to do that. I'd met up with James for a coffee. Sorry, you don't mind me using his name, do you?
No, that's fine.
We'd met up and had a coffee, and we were just having a chat about, you know, just general. He seemed really content. He seemed really happy, and we sort of got talking about family and stuff and how dysfunctional our family had been and all that kind of thing. But he seemed really happy. He wasn't underneath, you know. He just wanted to be accepted by his father. That's all it was. He just wanted to be accepted by his father. And he was living in Brighton, and Brighton obviously being a place where he could express himself. He'd had a conversation with his dad that night. No one really knows what was said. But the next day his body was at the bottom of a cliff.
Oh my God.
And it was torture for him, you know. I mean, all of this stuff that I had felt, he had obviously felt as well. Probably suppressed even more because of his, you know, because of his situation. And I remember getting the phone call, and you just die inside, you know. And what made me really angry, at his funeral, he had a Jehovah's Witness service from his dad. And I'm like, and my auntie Pat had to hold me back because I was ready to go and lamp him. Because I was like, this is what has caused this. Do you not realise? Are you that deranged that you don't think that for 1 second that the treatment that you gave him has not affected him mentally? that's maybe why he's in this situation.
Well, they're in complete denial.
Complete denial. Complete denial. Funny enough, it was at the funeral when I'd seen my mum and dad.
How long had it been?
3 years, maybe 4 years. Yeah. The only time I'd seen him previously was the birth of my son, and I'd seen him at the birth of my son, and the reason why was because when Luke was born, there was some complications, shall we say. So I rang my dad and I said, "Hey, look, you guys are grandparents. Just wanted to let you know." And then when there was some complications and we didn't know if he was going to make it through the night, I said, "Look, why don't you just come over?" I said, "Just put it to one side for 1 minute. I don't care what you believe in. Just come and see your grandson, please. I'm begging you. You'll kill yourself if you don't." You know, probably the wrong thing to say, but anyway. But this is reality. This is reality. My dad said, "Well, if that is the case, would you mind waiting in reception while we go to see him? So we haven't got to see you." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." Anyway, they did it on the QT. They came and saw their grandchild. I'm really glad they did, to be fair.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't have a conversation with him until, see, James's funeral.
How did that conversation turn out?
I was distraught. James was, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say we were, you know, we certainly weren't, you know, inseparable or whatever, but he was certainly a good friend to me, and, you know, someone who I respected dearly. And like any father would, you see your son in a state where I was obviously feeling very emotional. You want to get to him. You want to comfort him.
100%.
And he couldn't, because of the religion telling him that he's not supposed to. So he didn't. That broke my heart even more, because I tell you, if it was my kid, I'd have been pushing them all out of the way to get to you. But he obeyed. We then went outside, and then he tried to put his arm around me, and I pushed him away. I said, "Dad, you can't, after all of these years, pretend that you care." And that broke his heart. But in that state of emotion, that's how I felt. And people ask if I regret saying that. I don't, because that was the truth, you know. And it's all very well sort of saying that, you know, these people are victims. I do understand that. I do appreciate that Jehovah's Witnesses are victims. They are. But at some point, you've got to take responsibility for your own actions. And he had a choice there. He could have pushed these people out of the way and say, "No, I'm going to go and comfort my son." And he chose not to. He wanted to do it on the QT. And that is what made me angry, because it was like, yeah, this is, you know, yeah. So yeah, that was difficult. But yeah, that was the last time I'd seen him. And yeah, so yeah, that was James's funeral, and that was yeah, it was very difficult.
So that was the last time you've seen your father?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because we can go on to where he is now.
Mm. My dad was such an awesome human being. He really was. He loved his family dearly. He was a hard worker, a really great businessman. You know, he owned various property and that kind of thing. Was a bit sassy, you know, stood up to people when he could. He was my hero, you know, and he did everything he could for me, everything he could with the power that he had. But he had the shackles on of the watchtower, you know, that's what he had. To the point where he couldn't console his own child at a funeral, you know? And mentally, he was going through hell. He was going through torture, you know. January the 2nd, 2000. And what would it have been? 2016. Just ring the doorbell from the coppers, 2:30 in the morning. They say they found his body in the lake. He'd left his wife and child in a house and got into his car, no phone, no wallet, nothing. And he drove his car to a lake and he jumped in and it frozen to death.
Oh my God.
Dog walker found his body the next morning.
I'm so sorry.
And for what? Believing something different, believing, having a different belief to his child, This is what it does to people. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you are, the statistics say, 10 times more likely to commit suicide. I believe it to be much higher than that. To this day, because suicide is something that is frowned upon by Jehovah's Witnesses, his death went down as heart failure. Not suicide, heart failure. Because they didn't want the embarrassment of suicide. Right? Can we just take a moment to remember this great man?
Of course.
It was just the pain, the numbness that I felt, knowing that the last words to my dad were in anger. It broke me, No one can prepare you for this. And the thing is that no one really knew what was going on in his head. I knew. And to this day, it will still be denied in the religion.
It was the pressure.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
Everything that I've spoken about, that I've been through as a man, he would have gone through as well, because all men do. And now it's attached to these other pressures that you've now got, having a disfellowship child. And where does the blame get put? Me. Because I'm the one who's chosen to leave, And this is the thing, and this is what I've always been told. You're the one that chose to leave, Jason. You're the one who brought this upon yourself. I remember going to his. I wasn't allowed at his wake, and my mother told me I wasn't welcome, so I didn't go to his wake. I wanted to, but I wasn't allowed at his wake. I went round to their bungalow, and I said to my mother, I said, I really want to be there for you as a son. And she looked around the room and she laughed at me. She said, why would I need you when I've got all of these people around me? That hurt. I wanted to be there for her as a son. And I realised that I couldn't be that. And I think that's what, out of everything, that's what broke my dad. It was the fact that he couldn't be a father to his son, And these were, like I say, growing up, me and my dad were best mates, To not have that anymore, that's what it was like. That's what it does to people, And my story isn't uncommon. It's really not uncommon. And with this whole podcast, Sean, if 1,000 people get upset by it, but one person can take something from it and can sort themselves out as a result, I will do this every day for the rest of my life. All right.
Respect to that.
They definitely will, Jason. What support structure did you have at that point in your life? You said you had a child and you had your own family. You've got your own family at this point, so we were able to get support from people.
Yeah, definitely. What I would say is that not now, but sort of, when you are when you're trying to find out what truth is, you start looking at various things. And for me, at that time, I was looking at I kind of joined a traditional sort of Christian church and stuff. Again, sort of looking for meaning and looking for truth. And the people in the church there were actually really helpful, to be fair, throughout the whole thing. It's not something I believe in or anything now, but it was something that, was necessary as part of the healing. And I did have some people around me, which definitely was helpful. Yeah, definitely was helpful. And the ex-Jehovah's Witness community as well during that time were really good as well.
It's quite a big community of that.
There is, there is a big community online now with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and they have various kind of meetup groups and that kind of thing as well. So,
have you ever had therapy for any of this?
I had one session. No, I've never had therapy, Sean, and Maybe I should, I don't know, but I want to be able to, in the darkest things that I've been through, I want to take the positives. I want to take the positives. You know, the fact that I had a dad. You know, some people never know their dad. You know, I want to take the positives of I'm healthy. That, you know, I have a roof over my head. I am each and every day grateful of the people that I do have around me. Of my wife. You know, sitting behind the camera, she's my world. You know, and this is my therapy. This is my therapy. Being able to have your own opinions, being able to have your own views, being able to make the most out of this thing we call life, finding purpose, finding meaning. You know, I feel with therapy, I don't want to be going back into those dark places. This has been a bit of therapy for me, actually, to be fair.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah, but, you know, I don't want to keep going to those dark places. I want to move on. I don't want to be known as Jason Thickpenny, this ex-Jehovah's Witness who is scarred and who goes around banging a drum telling people not to join. I want to be known as Jason Thickpenny, the guy who actually stood up to these bullies, who made the most out of life, who became a relatively good businessman, who became a good father, became a good husband. I don't want to be known as this guy who just went to therapy to heal with all of his wounds, and that's no disrespect to people who do, and I think it should be done, and maybe I should get some, I don't know, but certainly I don't feel as though at the moment it's something I want to go
very
down.
Personal journey, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
You got an amazing, brave spirit, Jason.
Definitely.
So you know, the people watching this, what do you want to say to them? I imagine there's some apostates out there.
Yeah. I think for any ex-Jehovah's Witness that is listening, I would just say, go and make the best out of your life. You know, you've got ample opportunity now. Hopefully you've still got many years left in you, and you can go and be awesome, you know, and whatever it is that you've been through, you can still do it. You don't have to let these scars or these burdens hold you back. You can achieve in life whatever the you want. So go and do it. Stop having this as and I'm not saying this is not it's not a good reason to not move on, but don't let it, because all you'll do is you'll be letting them win, you know. And don't accept shunning. When I see Jehovah's Witnesses in the street now, I go and talk to them, particularly people that know me, and it makes them feel really awkward. I can tell you that. It's brilliant. Take the power back, you know. Why are you you don't believe in them anymore? Why are you accepting their shunning? I don't. You know, I don't accept your doctrine, so I don't have to let you shun me. And it's brilliant. When I walk into my old neighborhood now, and I see them on the street with their trolleys, it's like I'm parting the Red Sea. They just disappear when they see me. And that is invigorating, because you're taking the power back, you know, and it's not something that they should have ever owned in the first place. So don't let them.
Amen to that.
So yeah, that's what I would say to the ex.
And you was able to get the car that your dad always wanted.
Yeah, the 911.
Yeah, well, the business sort of took off really well. I started my own company.
What is your
now.
Company?
I mean, I've got a few now, to be fair. So I started a model railway company. It's something that me and him always had a passion for. So I started a model railway company. Have you ever done an escape room before?
Yes.
You know, so I built some escape rooms. Yeah. One of them being in the back of a live ambulance. First one of its kind.
Wow, where's this? In Leicester?
Yeah, it's in Leicester. I can drive it though. I can bring it up.
That would be amazing.
So yeah, and businesses did really well. And my dad always wanted himself a 911. That's what he always wanted. And he once got lent one. But of course, he had to be held back, of course, because you're not supposed to have material things. And so an opportunity came for me to buy one. I paid myself a handsome dividend, and I bought this Porsche. And I just remember, and Emma, my wife, will tell you the same thing. There's this lasting memory I've got of it when we had the roof down. And we've got Queen, you know, one of the most, you know.
What? I Want to Break Free?
No, it was Don't Stop Me Now.
Yeah.
And it was just like, there is nothing more appropriate right now, particularly coming from somebody like Freddie, you know, who would have been detested, you know, just turn it up into full blast. We'd had the roof down, just drove it like a obviously legal speed-ish to the coast. And it was just like, you know what, it was. I only really bought it, to be honest with you, because he wanted one. It was almost kind of a little bit of a nod to him, really, to be fair. I sold it about a year later because I didn't really like it. But yeah, it was just sort of a bit of a feather in the cap, really, to be fair. And I guess that's the thing. And you know, I know deep down he didn't believe this to be the true religion. I know that deep down. And I guess I want to do what would have made him proud, you know, and yeah, I guess I still probably leave my life a little bit like that. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
He's definitely proud. The big question in philosophy, what is the meaning of life?
The journey is everything, you know. I think meaning of life is different to different people. But for me, the meaning of life is not the destination, it's the journey. Often the destination is going to be really disappointing. I mean, have you ever been to Disneyland? It's probably not that great when you go, you know. I mean, you know, sure, more than anyone, you know, mansions and all that kind of thing. It's about the journey and it's about the people that you're in. The meaning of life is falling out of the kebab shop drunk at 3:00 in the morning with your mates.
My favourite pastime.
That's what life is about. It's about enjoyment. It's about happiness, and about being whatever it is that you want to be.
And driving really fast to Queen. That sounds like our car journeys, doesn't it?
Having a powerful female co-host who shuns me on occasion.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So yeah, I think meaning of life is different for different people. But find a meaning, find a purpose, because without it, nothing will drive you.
Without it, you might be lost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Amen to that.
So
Absolutely
people
brilliant.
watching this then, Jason, perhaps apostates and stuff, who maybe want to reach out to you or follow you on your socials,
Yep.
could you tell them where to find you? We will add those links below the video.
I have a YouTube channel. You know, I don't post that much anymore, really, to be fair, and they're not kind of high production or anything. It'll just be as and
I
when.
think you should. You're a brilliant
Oh,
speaker.
bless you, thank you.
Yeah, an amazing speaker.
And so yeah, you can find me if you I've got a very unique name, Jason Thickpenny. So if you find me on YouTube, if you Google me or whatever, you'll find me. It doesn't matter. And yeah, I would say probably best communication is probably Facebook, because that's where I tend to do a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, they can find me.
If people want to book an escape room, how do they do
Yeah.
escape-colville.com.
Have you
Yeah.
been to one?
No,
They are great
Do you
fun.
supply these across the country? How's it work?
Only my local area, but like I said, we built
Okay.
one in the back of an ambulance, which
I
you
think
can
that's
drive.
cool.
Yeah.
We do kind of corporate events and that kind of thing and stuff as well. So
We'll
yeah.
be doing that on our staff do.
I might have flashbacks to Arizona.
Do you know what there is?
Get me out of here!
Yeah.
Is it like a World War one? Because that's one I've done. It's like a World War Two.
I mean, we've got various ones, to be fair. So we've got one where you are in a police detective office. You'll be great at it, to be fair, Sean. So yeah, and you've got to basically find your way out of it. And then we've done this one, like I say, in the back of an ambulance, where it's called Jane Doe, and you have to guess who the patient is by looking at various clues around this ambulance and solving various puzzles to work out who this individual is. And only if you guess it right will you save her. If you don't, then
Wow.
That must have been so fun to design.
oh, it was great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's that's the whole fun of it, to be fair. So yeah, and then we're about to release one which is played in complete darkness.
Oh,
So it's escape room in the dark. You've got to use your sense of smell, your sense of hearing.
I'll be useless at that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that.
So yeah, but this is all part of it. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of having fun with it.
And do you know the other apostates that we've interviewed? Have you ever communicated with
Well,
them?
Chris, the first Chris that came onto your show, I met Chris through a protest that we did in London. And funny enough, I didn't know Chris was coming onto your show, to be fair, but I've been an advocate of your podcast for many years. So when I saw him up there, I was like, "Hey, that's cool." But yeah, I met Chris through the like I say, this protest that we did down in London. I didn't know the other Chris who came on.
Chris
to you on
Ryan.
That's an
His
amazing.
story was, harrowing.
Dark story and difficult to listen to, but yeah, really
He's a great
brave guy. So yeah, I knew one of them, but not the other. Yeah.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We'll add those podcasts onto this one if you want to stay tuned and watch the other apostate interviews. And if you want to reach out to Jason, all of his links will be in the description box below the video. Wow, that was...
give us a hug.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Brilliant.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant,
Thank you,
Jason.
mate.
Yeah, well,
Oh, appreciate it.
yeah, good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Here at Boomer and Jen, we offer a wide range of organic or recycled clothing. We all know our planet is important. We only have this one, so it's vital that we all work together to slow down and reverse the changes to the environment. Whilst we all know that big industry are having a significant effect on pollution, here at Boomer and Jen, we believe that if we all make small changes, we can do our part. Fast fashion causes detrimental effects to the planet. Not only is nearly 20% of global wastewater produced by the fast fashion industry, but there is a considerable amount of fast fashion ending up in landfill. So let's move away from fast fashion items that are only worn once or twice, and start wearing extremely comfortable, durable, and environmentally friendly clothing and ethical jewellery. Boomer and Jen was founded in a quiet town in Devon in 2018. It is now gone from strength to strength as the world is becoming more aware of the current climate situation, helping our customers to buy sustainable, quality clothing. All of our products are fair trade and registered with the Global Organic Textiles Standard Association. Check us out on organiccottonclothing.co.uk.
This podcast is sponsored by Gadfly Press. We are proud to announce the publication of The Girl Gambler, a young woman's story of her escape from gambling addiction. The story of a young girl's entrapment in gambling addiction, the true advert for problem gambling and how it controlled her every movement, every thought, and almost took her life. How the guilt and shame that go hand in hand with addiction stopped her from reaching out for help for 8 years as she didn't feel it was okay for a young female to be a problem gambler. How she believed it was a male-dominated problem, and how eventually she did find the tools that enabled her to become free of her addiction.
Available worldwide on Amazon. Link in the description box below this video. Thank you for supporting our sponsor.